take your questions?
Sure. So I've got what are going to sound like a couple softballs, but they were questions that your predecessors and others' predecessors weren't able to answer very easily. So just bear with me. The two very brief ones. What is the capital of Israel?
The President announced yesterday, issued a proclamation declaring the United States recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel.
So the answer to the question is Jerusalem, correct?
That's exactly right.
What country is Jerusalem in?
The President recognized Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel.
Does that mean then that the U.S. government officially recognizes that Jerusalem, the municipality, lies within the State of Israel?
There has been no change in our policy with respect to consular practice or passport issuance at this time, which is where I think you're.
Well, I wanted to know what the practical implications of this decision are, not in terms of necessarily broad policy, the peace process, whatever, but things like maps. Will they be withdrawn? Will the passport issue? Will passports now identify Jerusalem as being within Israel if that person was born there? What about official documents? Will they say Jerusalem, comma, Israel? What about the mailing address of the consulate or the street address of the consulate?
I've already commented that on consular practice there is no change at this time. With respect to maps, we are, of course, examining that issue, and when we have a decision, we will announce it with respect to how we will treat Jerusalem for official USG-produced mapping purposes.
Okay, so that sounds to me like with these areas there is no practical impact.
On consular practice, there is no impact.
Thank you.
So I'm from East Jerusalem. I'm being from East Jerusalem.
Excuse me, I'll just call on the questions, okay? Since he doesn't know anybody. Elise, go ahead.
Hi, Assistant Secretary. Could I just put a finer point on it? The president said, and you just said that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, but he also said that the borders are yet, that there's no change in
boundaries of sovereignty.
The boundaries of sovereignty. So
so
you're essentially saying that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, but you're not saying that the entire municipality of Jerusalem falls into that capital.
I will restate what the president said, which is we recognize Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel. We are not changing or taking a position on the boundaries of sovereignty in Jerusalem, including geographic boundaries, and I will not elaborate beyond that except to note a further comment which the president made, which is that we regard those issues, the specifics, the boundaries of sovereignty, borders, as a matter for permanent status or final status negotiations between the party. And I think that addresses just about everything that could fall in the basket you're raising.
If I might, I think that's, very parsed language and, kind of a very legal, kind of diplomatese definition. And if you could kind of put it into which you're very good at, by the way, after many years, if you could put it into layman's terms, what does that mean? That, you call Jerusalem the capital of Israel, but then you say that the boundaries of sovereignty, I think that, people would like a little bit more of a layman's definition.
I think the way the president presented it yesterday in his remarks and in the proclamation does a pretty good job of that, which is to say we're acknowledging reality, something practical. Jerusalem is currently, historically, capital of Israel. That's the decision he announced. With respect to boundaries of sovereignty, borders, geography, those are matters for final status negotiations between the party, and we're not going to touch on those at this time. And I think that speaks for itself. And I'll use his words rather than my own diplomatese.
Yes, my name's Said. I just want to follow up on East Jerusalem because it's not clear at all, not in my mind. So what happens to the Palestinian population of East Jerusalem? Do they now become automatically Israeli citizens, would have full rights and so on? What happened to 300,000 Palestinians?
So the president's proclamation yesterday, his decision have no impact on those issues. He is recognizing a practical reality. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and all of the other aspects, boundaries of sovereignty, We're not taking a position. It's for the sides to resolve.
So if you just bear with me for a second. So why not say West Jerusalem? I mean, the Russians have done that. It did not cause any problem and so on. Or why don't you say that, this part, East Jerusalem, has been negotiated, as you yourself have been involved for so many years. This portion is designated to become the capital of the Palestinian state.
Side, the president's decision speaks for itself. There are many words that are in his statement, in his remarks. There are words that aren't. We recognize Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel. He didn't go beyond that, and I'm not going to go beyond that.
Can you share with us just one last thing? Could you share with us, sir, one national security interest of the United States that this recognition has served? Can you identify one national security interest of the United States that this
The
recognition
president
has
is
identified?
committed to advancing a peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. In his view, upon reflection, this step, he believes, assists in that process. Full stop.
Nick, go right
Can you
ahead.
explain that
Can I-
further?
can I just
Because that's
ask,
exactly what we're trying to,
Mr.
that's what I'm trying to figure out
Nick,
is.
go right ahead.
Um,
Hold on, Nick.
Just to Matt's point, can you explain why a decision-making process needs to be made about maps and things like that and consular services? I mean, you said yourself the president declared Jerusalem the capital of Israel. Why does there need to be a further decision-making process on those other issues?
It's a very simple answer, and it's wholly technical. What phrasing do you place upon government-issued maps? There are different word choices that can be used to be clear. There will be a decision made. When the decision is made, you'll have it, and you'll have the maps.
And can you just explain why now? Why did he make this decision now?
Because December 4th was the trigger date for the next waiver required under the Jerusalem Act of '95. That was the proximate timing issue.
So there
Full
was
stop.
no strategic, it was totally.
The president had to
totally
make a
based-
decision. He did.
Well, why didn't
But
he do
he's-
it on the 4th?
That's the legal requirement of the act. Every
But he-
6 months, a
but he
waiver has
didn't-
to be issued.
He didn't do it on the 4th. He did it on the 6th.
We believe, and I believe the White House has spoken to this, technically we were in compliance. We'll leave it to the Hill on whether 48 hours constituted a problem or not. But the 4th was the trigger date.
Wow, I wish my editors had your sense of deadline.
Thanks. Can you just say how this furthers the peace process?
The president believes taking this issue, that is the fact of U.S. recognition, acknowledgement of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, an issue that's been pending out there since '95, since the act was initially passed, was appropriate to make, and that it helps in the process to no longer have that issue, which is the U.S. acknowledgement of the simple fact that Jerusalem is the location of the Supreme Court, the Knesset, the President and the Prime Minister's residences, that is a useful clearing of an issue that has been grown as part of this process for many decades.
So it's setting us up for what? If you're saying that gets that out of the way and it's been a reality, how does that set the stage?
The President and his peace team have been engaged, as you all know, for many months now in discussions with two parties, with regional states, with other key actors to try to advance a peace. This is not an easy process. It's a difficult one. But he believes this step assists in that process. I am not going to elaborate on that further.
And how would
The Palestinians said that the U.S. cannot anymore be a mediator in this peace process. So how do you think this presidential team can go forward and broker a deal with if one of the two main actors doesn't want him
It
as a
will not
mediator?
surprise you to hear, after all these years, my response is we will judge parties by their actions rather than by statements.
Thanks.
Sorry, Rich. Yes.
As a veteran diplomat and representative of NEA, do you personally agree with the president's decision?
Oh, now. I'm an employee of the U.S. government. I'm a Foreign Service officer. We all, and I speak of my boss, the Secretary, and the other principals of the U.S. government, we are all part of this team. This is a decision which we will work our best to execute in advance.
How long did NEA consult with the administration?
I'm not going to get into a tick-tock on this.
Arshad.
Do you believe that this decision in any way impairs the pursuit of peace by the United States?
We've made clear, the President has made clear, that he hopes it helps advance this process. helps move it forward.
That's not my
Clears
question.
an
My question
issue.
is, do you think it in any way impairs the pursuit of peace? I know what you hope. I want to know if you think it has impaired your efforts.
I can't make that judgment at this point.
Not even given the negative reactions that you have seen in Arab capitals among some of your allies, let alone the Palestinians?
No. Again, we will judge by what actually happens with those parties as we deal with this process, as we carry on discussions with them. Again, we're not going to be driven by statements.
And one other question. Do you regard those portions of East Jerusalem that were occupied by Israel in 1967 as occupied territory?
The decision of the president is to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel. The president has stated that that decision does not touch upon issues of boundaries of sovereignty or geographic borders. Full stop.
So it is still occupied territory in your view?
I have stated what the president's decision does and does not do.
Kylie from CBS. Thank you.
What is the current policy of the U.S. administration towards Israeli settlements in East Jerusalem?
As this decision had no impact on any issue other than the recognition or acknowledgement of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
No, but so
I've answered your question.
Could you follow up what the policy therefore is, even though it has not been
I'm not
impacted?
going to restate the policy at this point.
Can I just ask you, are you accepting the premise of the question that construction in East Jerusalem is settlement activity? I don't believe that.
What I am stating is an affirmative. The president's decision was a recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The president made clear issues that touch upon the boundaries of sovereignty, final status issues are not addressed by his decision.
I get it. The question is one of terminology. Fine. You call construction in the West Bank settlement activity, but not necessarily construction in East Jerusalem. That's just construction. It hasn't traditionally.
The president's decision did not touch on those issues.
Final question, Elise.
Could you explain the distinction between recognizing the capital and it not deciding anything on borders as it refers to a deal? Because if you're saying that this is a final status issue to be negotiated at the table, how does either A, this not prejudice a deal when Jerusalem is a final status issue, or B, how is it not a meaningless declaration that could be negotiated at the table? It has to be one or the other.
Elise, final status negotiations are going to deal with those boundaries of sovereignty, border questions that the president spoke to as not addressed by his recognition. The president thought it was the right thing to do for the United States after all these years to acknowledge the fact, the reality, that Jerusalem is the seat of government of the state of Israel, the capital of the state of Israel. That's it.
But respectfully, it's inconsistent with the idea that you would also be negotiating at the table unless you can acknowledge what we're all trying to get you to say, which you artfully
you may
are
well
not.
think that.
Well,
Thank you.
but the idea that that Jerusalem is the capital, but perhaps in final status negotiations that it might be not the united capital.
Elise, I will only address one more point on this. What were the words the president used? It was a very simple statement: recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. There are words you might want to put in there, he didn't. There are words you might want to take out, he didn't. That statement was very carefully made, as was the comment, we are not prejudicing, addressing by this decision final status issues.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.